Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. Turn the lights off here to, I don't know, different kind of lighting and takes up less energy. Saves the light bulbs and so on. Okay. Alright. So this game, let's go down here. I had black, no, I had white. So, let's find. Somehow I made mistakes that let my opponent back in. Oh no, I think maybe a lot of it was, this was about time. So I cleared out the board of my opponent's pieces to claim at least a draw. There's no way white can lose this game. And then I thought, well, we'll do this systematically and just clear my king out of the way and push my opponent's king to the edge and checkmate, except queen f7. This is a mate in one, and it's off the mark. So we're going to go in here and finish this with practice against computer. We'll find better moves to make. Time-wise, I think if I had thought of it, queen d5 was good here. You know, we get the check going with the movement of my queens, and it's queen to a6 checkmate. Just a tidier version of, not even just a tidier version, this is a win. In this game I timed out with superior force against stalemate. Just stalemate. And black draws the game now. It's frustrating. Now we have, this is being evaluated a bit off of this. And I might not review that game. Maybe I will. I'm not sure. This game is focused on my opponent's brilliant move. It's this move on f7 as part of fried liver attacks and similar attacks. So let's review what made black successful in this game in particular. Italian game. Here's the Italian game. My coach knows it too. And yes, as the coach points out, this leads to some explosive ideas. The Italian game is one of the more tactical, major chess openings playable at the very highest levels. It doesn't always have to be tactical, but tends to be because of the way that white's bishop on c4 is trained and aimed at f7. Some standard development, and here begins the main. I think this is mainline fried liver. I made a mistake here, and it will be important for me to know about that mistake. I tried knight takes d5, and that's considered. Yeah, that's an inaccuracy. So knight a5 is preferred by torch 4, and b5 is another one. So we're going to make a graphic out of this. b5 is an idea, and knight a5 is an idea. Should I might, you know what, this one I like too. Just the way this fits for my eye, you know. Knight e4. So what I'm going to do here is, now we have the graphic ready. We take a screenshot. Get all the relevant information into one screenshot. Guess we'll include the time. No reason not to. And yeah, so these are alternatives. And, you know, I might have shown the mistake also with knight d6. I don't know. Yeah, let's take another screenshot. No reason not to. I don't do this often. When I find a bad inaccuracy, or just anything really outright wrong in my opening game, I would take a screenshot like this. I urge you to do the same. So you don't keep making the same errors over and over and over again. I don't have a good memory for, oh yeah, I played this that time, so that was bad, and then I should try this instead. That's not how my brain is. But I can memorize through repetition and spaced rehearsal plus repetition, or spaced repetition. Some of these things. I look at these once in a while and I say, right. Knight from f6 takes d5, not good. So I played knight takes d5. My opponent played the best move, which is to capture on f7. It is a brilliant move by way of the computer's determining, and so that's good. I recaptured. And what's the deal? What's going on here? Black's king. So let's start with Black owns so much more of the center. He's got more pieces developed. The two remaining minor pieces he has to develop almost develop on their own here. I mean, look at these bishops have a plethora of squares to which they may develop safely. White's pieces, not quite so much. My opponent is ahead on the clock by 13 seconds. Black is dominating the race for mobility, or the contest for mobility. We've already sort of gone through that, but just to show, the queen is very mobile as well. She's protecting the knight at d5. One more thing, Black has 2 points extra material. White has two very important things in his or her favor. One, in a board like this, it's White's turn to move the initiative. This same board with Black to move is a win for Black. I'll even say it. that strongly that this same exact board, black to move, he's gonna find a win. The computer will find the win, and then I can remember it. I think bishop e6 might be part of that, and then we have time to not have to commit our king so far out to e6 to keep the knight. But it's not black's turn to move, it's white's turn to move. And queen f3 to f3, as you can see here, queen f3 check is the best move, the only good move, and almost not quite a winning move, but definitely leaves white with a strong advantage, despite being 2 points of material down. So queen f3 is a very strong move here, takes advantage of initiative. This board is about not all that much other than initiative. Yes, I could represent it like that. White's turn to move makes this in white's favor. Not end of the world, like you gotta tilt your king. No. White's turn to move here means he's or she is going to use the initiative for an advantage. So yeah, and then king safety. And sorry, initiative and king safety. White has a safe king. This king is already safe. Not 100%, of course, but this king is safe. And when there'll be a moment if the action ever stops, which I don't think it usually does in the fried liver or related Italian game systems, white can castle and just be the side with a much, much, much safer king. So this board is all about initiative and king safety. And now the moves themselves. Queen to f3, only good move, best move, great move, all that stuff. King e6 is the only good move, best move, great move, keeps things together for black. Knight c3. Best move, only good move, all that stuff with knight c3. It's the only good move and it's the best. This is a good one. Blue fighting turquoise fighting green. Yeah, I played the move knight b4, which I'm sure I half remembered, but half also had to dig up via calculation for those of you worried about my brain or studying my brain. There's a little bit of both here. On this board, I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought, well, knight b4 seems to hold things together because if a3, then knight takes c1 check, and even if I lose that knight outright, I've leveled material, but if I have time, I can capture this rook here and be ahead. So by a sort of a process of logic and deduction, then knight to b4 has to be the best move here for black, and indeed it is. It's not a great move, as white is still mostly better, but it's the best. It is a great move. I shouldn't have said that. It doesn't turn the game on its head though, not yet. Bishop b3, keeping an eye on c2, keeping things nice and safe here for the moment. A great move by white. C6 is we need to keep our material advantage if we're going to have any sort of way out of this nightmare with a king on e6, with this nightmarish king on e6 ish. A3 is another strong move. I chose to try to trade the queens is still good. This was a well-played game, I'm thinking right now. Right now, I'm thinking this is a well-played game. A lot of the moves that are computer best moves are also only good moves and great moves, and not only that, but marked as such by the computer. There's a brilliant move involved. So it's an interesting 12 full moves we've just met. Now here I feel like black is just about equalized. The king's out of the way, but there's no queen, and um, there's missing minor pieces, and the rooks aren't like full force yet or anything. White has to take time in order to claim real estate in the center. Instead of thinking the king on e6 is not bad, not bad. And we have only one piece defending d5, but overall, the king safety issue has been answered by black. Moving back one square and taking advantage of two squares forward, and I've got the square covered more often, even if it opens up the e file against my king, because it also opens up the e file against my opponent's king. Castles is good. King d6, I don't know, some sort of inaccuracy. Torch saw rook d8. The point of king d6 is when we think about the king and about this pin on the d5 pawn, that pin's not going anywhere. I mean, this knight is this bishop, he is not to be trifled with anytime soon. So we better solve this pinned d5 pawn, and soon. So in this position, I'm looking, how do I break that pin? Some ways are better than others. We want to keep a hold over the pawn, or else we lose the pawn by breaking the pin, right? So I play king to d6. Of course, checking that, seeing that, or observing that the bishop on c5 can find safety in whatever circumstance to attack that bishop. This bishop can find safety. Now, one of the things I'm noticing now is after king d6, I'm a little worried about rook a5. Because if I want to move out of the way to b6, then white has either bishop takes d5 or rook takes d5. Probably rook takes d5, and it's we've lost a pawn. We've lost an important central pawn. However, king to d6, rook a5, and then I think black can hold on with pawn to b6. I don't like that this bishop is, I mean, he's defended well now by a pawn and the king has a kicker, but this can open up in a way that actually doesn't put black at a disadvantage. It's close, but yeah, I did some of this. I didn't get all the way through to this part of the calculation in game, but I did check before I played king d6. I checked to make sure that this bishop was safe. I didn't check thoroughly enough, but I did a cursory check of it. Look, it's what the point of all this is. King d6. You wouldn't think like, well, why is this? Is this really that important? Sometimes you know when it's the critical moment, and sometimes you don't. Here with black to move. I didn't know this was a critical moment. It was. I played an inaccuracy rather than a blunder, so I'm okay with that. King to d6. Pawn to d3. Rook to g8. This is kind of setting up for a trick, but if I can get it off in time, it's a darn good trick. It's a trap. Eminem says they're the same, but your trick, it's a trap. But anyway, rook to g8, pinning this pawn, and then with ideas of bishop at c8 all the way to h3, and things could fall apart for white in a hurry. And yeah, that's essentially what happens. Developing its last piece as late as move 17, and I just more or less ignore it If he wants to trade dark squared bishops, then we'll trade dark squared bishops, but this is the story now. Before king safety was the story now. Now king activity for black is the story. I guess you can make the argument that king safety is the story, except it's now white who's on a shaky bridge. Black, like I said, the swap of dark squared bishops is not a bad thing for black. Some of this is just black's forced to play accurately, b5 or king b6. I was looking at moves. I had considered b5, but I didn't like c4 by white, and then maybe he's here that are starting to take advantage of the pin on a b5 knight or on the b5 pawn. It doesn't quite work out, but why complicate things when we now both have fewer than 3 minutes on our clock? So I'm for this. Also, just this one-off attack. I think this might be called a one-shot sometimes, a one-off attack against the rook here. There's no teeth behind it, but it gives the initiative to black, to be honest. So that has some teeth. I'm not gonna capture this rook, but I want it to be my turn to move so I can make attacks on the G file and over here against white's also unsafely castled king. I didn't see this. I noticed here rook to a1 or rook at f to a1. The doubling of the rooks kind of puts things in perspective here. However, I determined black's doing fine anyway. We can pick up a pawn and then have a discovered attack. We can't go through that pawn, but black's going to have an attack against white's king anyway. I did so poorly. If rook takes g2, then rook takes d2 check, then most certainly king h1, so as to prevent a discovered attack. And then after rook takes f2, my thoughts were, where's the big payout? And there is a big payout. It's these two pawns here. But with time, in a blitz game, I thought maybe I could get even better. I played the miss. Bishop takes g2. And my opponent blundered, and I'm picking up a full bishop as a result. Get him out, again back and out away from the white's line of fire, from his rook. And we're just gonna chompalicious, and try to gain even more material on the king's side. We have a 4-point material lead. Things are starting to wind in black's favor. This was interesting. We have a very clear discovered check, but it doesn't really do that much. So I might have been a little bit strained by that. I played this bad move, bishop e4, check, and my opponent misses in return. So now some of this is time pressure, guys. This is time pressure. We're both in time pressure. But yeah, king takes e4 would have been better after rook, and after rook g4 check, then the king has outs on both f5 and d5. And at that point, it's a complicated rook and pawn endgame with time winding down. So 5 and 10 and pick 'em. That's not what happened. Some of these moves are being made hurried and are inaccurate. Okay, pre-moving, and then I actually timed my opponent out right as I realized I probably had enough time to queen, rook swap perhaps, or whatever it is, and then get my rook to b6, place him on c6, all the way down to c8, start pushing the pawn, and if my opponent's king comes too close, go all the way back up to c1, and just push, and push, and we'll have a nice queen and rook checkmate to follow in some manner or other. I think that's it. Okay, I gotta excuse myself for a minute or two, and I'll be back to play this position with black to move. You know, I know what my move is, so I'll maybe make that move first. It's black to move here, and we know from the computer's readout, uh, rook takes g2 check. All right, I'll be back in a minute or two. All right.